Torako Koshi is the perfect student, smart, beautiful, and admired by everyone at school, but one dear girl's chaos threatens to expose her darkest secret. Can she survive the madness of Nokoden? The narrator describes Toritsu Hinamanami High School, and a girl greets the viewers before heading to school. As she walks, several deer quietly watch her from a distance. Two girls are on their way to school when one of them almost trips, but the girl from before catches her just in time and asks if she's okay. The girl earnestly thanks her, so she continues walking as the narrator introduces her as Koshi Hirako, a second-year student at Tenetsu Hinamanami High School. She is both the student council president and the class representative for Class 2B. Koshi is known in her neighborhood as the perfect girl, but she has a secret she can't tell anyone because she used to be a delinquent. However, she's determined to keep that hidden because she believes that if people found out, all her efforts to be seen as an honor student would be wasted. As Koshi keeps walking, she shockingly spots a girl hanging from an electricity pole. At first, she hurriedly questions how something like this could happen in the first episode, but then she notices the girl is still alive when her snot drips onto Koshi. Looking closer, Koshi sees the girl has antlers growing out of her head, seeing which she questions how she has antlers when they only grow on male deer. She decides to ignore the girl and keep heading to school, but before Koshi can leave, the girl starts intensely staring at her. Pressured, she remarks that getting involved in this would make her late, which is absolutely unacceptable for an honor student like her. Koshi sighs and helps her down, then asks how she got stuck in the first place. The girl just says she woke up there, but Koshi doesn't believe her. Then, out of nowhere, the girl calls Koshi Miss Delinquent, hearing which Koshi shockingly realizes that she knows about her past. Koshi quickly denies being a delinquent and tells the girl not to get stuck on a utility pole again. With that, she leaves and reaches school, but as soon as she enters the classroom, her teacher introduces a new transfer student, and Koshi is shocked to see that it's the girl from earlier. As the girl walks in, her huge antlers smash the doorway, shocking Koshi and the rest of the class. Why do I hear boss music? The girl introduces herself as Shikanoko Noko, but she says people can call her Shikanoko. The class welcomes her, and the teacher asks her to sit next to Koshi. After taking her seat, Koshi tells Shikanoko she can ask for help anytime and call her whatever she wants, so Shikanoko instantly calls her delinquent lady, shocking the whole class. Koshi hurriedly denies it, but Shikanoko confidently says her wild instincts told her Koshi is a delinquent. To prove it, she points at her glowing antlers, confusing the class as Koshi gets more frustrated. Later, as Koshi walks down the hallway, other students admire her beauty, not knowing that she's panicking about Shikanoko spilling her secret. Determined to stop Shikanoko from causing more trouble, Koshi hurriedly returns to the classroom and finds deer crackers stacked on her desk. Shikanoko explains that they're a thank you gift, but Koshi isn't impressed. Seeing her reaction, Shikanoko decides to go even further and breaks off one of her antlers and offers it to Koshi, saying they're edible. Koshi refuses, but Shikanoko insists, snapping off her other antler and offering both as a special deal. Koshi tells her she doesn't want them and points out that without her antlers, Shikanoko just looks like a normal high school girl. Shikanoko replies that she's willing to give up her character for Koshi since she saved her life. Shikanoko puts her antlers back on and playfully asks Koshi if she wants to punish her. As she teases Koshi, a few classmates ask her if she and Shikanoko are close. However, before Koshi can say anything, Shikanoko starts explaining how they met. Panicking, Koshi grabs Shikanoko and drags her to the student council room. Once they're alone, Shikanoko teases Koshi, joking that she brought her here with some kind of plan. Koshi immediately denies it and warns Shikanoko to keep quiet about her past. If she spills the secret, there will be consequences. But Shikanoko loves messing with her and keeps making antler jokes, which annoys Koshi. Eventually, Koshi tells her to stop, accidentally hurting her feelings. Seeing Shikanoko get upset, Koshi apologizes, but Shikanoko quickly cheers up. To Koshi's surprise, Shikanoko removes her antlers like she's just taking off a hat. Later that day, as Koshi leaves school, she hears noise coming from the school's shed. She curiously checks it out and finds Shikanoko lying on the ground with a bloody forehead. Koshi panics, but Shikanoko casually says it's just a minor accident. Koshi doesn't believe her and grabs a first aid kit to help patch her up. Shikanoko explains that she was trying to clean the old shed by herself. Since she's injured, Koshi decides to help her as they clean together. Shikanoko mentions that she enjoys doing things more when she has someone with her. Their conversation is interrupted when their teacher, Ms. Yukai, arrives. She sees Koshi helping Shikanoko and thanks her. Then she suddenly reveals that Shikanoko told her she was turning the shed into a deer club and that Koshi wanted to join. Shocked, Koshi asks what club she's talking about, so Shikanoko reveals that she started the deer club. Koshi hurriedly remarks that she doesn't want to be scouted into such a ridiculous, but she's surprisingly easy to convince when Yukai and Shikanoko start praising her. Yukai hands Shikanoko an application form, which she quickly fills out, after which she declares Koshi as the deer club's president, as Koshi regretfully mutters that she can't argue back now since she agreed to join with such confidence. As they stand in front of their club room, Shikanoko hands Koshi a brush and asks her to comb her hair and antlers, so Koshi warily agrees but questions if she will have to do this every time from now on, as a girl menacingly watches them from afar. Late at night, Koshi brings supplies to the deer club, and as she walks, several deer and a mysterious girl secretly watch her. The narrator then introduces Koshi again as she walks through the school hallway. Later, Koshi returns to the deer club, and even though she isn't happy about being made president, she's excited to see the club room since she worked hard to decorate it and to show it to Shikanoko. But when she arrives, she is shocked to find the room completely destroyed and notices Shikanoko hiding in the corner. She immediately assumes Shikanoko is the one who destroyed her utopia and asks who did this with her, but Shikanoko quickly denies it and explains that the club room was already a mess when she arrived that morning. She adds that someone might be trying to kill her, revealing that she fell into a 5-meter hole on her way to school. Spears fell from the sky, and there were even water-filled bottles. Koshi doesn't believe her and suggests she go outside to get some fresh air. Suddenly, a kunai flies into the room and narrowly misses her. Shikanoko asks why she's acting so carelessly on a battlefield and says she should always stay vigilant. Infuriated, Koshi gets ready to meet the destroyer of her utopia and demands that the person show themselves. Instead, the attacker throws deer crackers in front of the club room. Shikanoko hurriedly starts running, so Koshi grabs her hand to stop her and insists that it's a trap, questioning who drools and charges right into a trap. However, Shikanoko runs forward regardless, declaring that she loves deer crackers more than anything. Just as she steps out of the club room, she gets caught in a trap. She angrily tells the person targeting her to come out because she will take them down right now. The girl steps forward and mutters that Shikanoko's quite a bold pest since she intended to eliminate her much earlier, but her calculations were totally off. She accepts the challenge and declares that she'll send her straight to hell, acknowledging that she's not ordinary. Shikanoko asks who she is, but Koshi recognizes the girl as Anko. It's revealed that she's Koshi's sister, as she happily hugs Koshi and says she missed her. Koshi asks what she means when they see each other all the time at their house, so Anko smilingly says she wants to be with her 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and mutters that her smell is irresistible. Koshi pushes her off, telling her to cut it out, and introduces her to Shikanoko. She asks Anko why she hates Shikanoko and asks if she's the one behind all this. Anko affirms this and declares that Koshi has changed because of Shikanoko. She always used to come back right after school, but she's been coming home late every day, so she wondered what was happening and followed her to discover that she was taking care of Shikanoko under the pretext of club activities. On top of that, she left her house early and decorated the club room, so she questions why cute rugs are necessary. Koshi insists that it's nothing like that and asks Shikanoko to clear things up, so Shikanoko declares that Koshi is her woman, shocking Anko, who declares that her place is next to her sister and anyone who gets in her way is an enemy, so she thought she destroyed everything. Wanting a fair fight, Anko lets Shikanoko go and challenges her to a duel. If Shikanoko loses, on top of that, she left her house early and decorated the club room, so she questions why cute rugs are necessary. Koshi insists that it's nothing like that and asks Shikanoko to clear things up, so Shikanoko declares that Koshi is her woman, shocking Anko, who declares that her place is next to her sister and anyone who gets in her way is an enemy, so she thought she destroyed everything. Wanting a fair fight, Anko lets Shikanoko go and challenges her to a duel. If Shikanoko loses, she must leave school and return to Nara Park to live as a deer forever. If Anko loses, she will accept Koshi and Shikanoko's friendship. Shikanoko confidently accepts the challenge. Koshi questions if she's actually serious and asks what will happen to the deer club if she becomes a deer in Nara Parks, so Koshi assures her that it's okay and tells her to believe in her because their deer club is bounded by a connection stronger than deer crackers. Shikanoko adds one more condition, saying that if she wins the fight, she wants lots of deer crackers, shocking Koshi. Later, during the Hinamanami High School Koshi Torako Championship event, Yukai introduces both competitors and explains the rules in front of a crowd. Instead of a real fight, the competition turns out to be a questionnaire battle. Yukai starts by asking Anko to share personal details about Koshi's life, which embarrasses Koshi. Meanwhile, Shikanoko enjoys the questions, thinking they will make Koshi more popular. The competition continues and Koshi suffers through one embarrassing question after another. The battle lasts until the evening, with Anko and Shikanoko tied. Anko furiously questions how Shikanoko has so much information on her and believes that she must have collected data on Koshi through a secret company of deer and is receiving it through her antlers. She angrily says she won't let her win and suddenly activates a hidden trap to hurl dozens of kunai at her, but Shikanoko quickly dodges the attack, while Koshi, annoyed by everything, decides to leave. In the chaos, Anko accidentally slips and throws a kunai toward Koshi, but before it can hit her, Shikanoko jumps in and takes the hit. Koshi watches in shock and starts crying as Shikanoko weakly says she feels really sleepy and closes her eyes. Two angelic deer appear and carry Shikanoko's spirit to the afterlife. There, Shikanoko meets a godly deer, but it immediately rejects her and kicks her spirit down back to her body. Shikanoko unexpectedly gets up and explains that she survived because she had a deer cracker in her chest pocket which blocked the kunai. Anko slowly thanks Shikanoko for saving her sister, muttering that she was so consumed with anger and hatred that she almost hurt her sister. She tearfully says she's a failure and admits Shikanoko is the one who deserves to stay by Koshi's side, but Shikanoko says that's not true since, thanks to the deer cracker she gave her, she was able to protect Koshi. She proposes that they can become friends, which Anko happily agrees with, and they both shake hands on it, puzzling Koshi. Koshi arrives at the deer club and immediately notices a deer strangely standing in the room. Shocked, she questions how there's a deer in the room. However, she remembers that she's been running into deer pretty normally these these days. The deer starts eating the club's supply of deer crackers, who tells it to not to do that. Annoyed, she asks if Shikanoko brought the deer, but doesn't see her anywhere. This makes Koshi suspicious, and she wonders if Shikanoko is actually the deer. She annoyingly tells the deer to change back quickly because she knows it's Shikanoko, but the deer remains unfazed. Determined to prove her theory, Koshi realizes it's teasing her and declares that she'll tear off the deer disguise for it. When the deer doesn't react, she hurriedly tries to rip off the skin from the deer, questioning if it really thinks she wouldn't notice it wearing that. However, the deer unexpectedly kicks her out of the room. Later, Koshi returns with drinks, muttering that she's really thirsty since she went back and forth between the school and the club room. She tries a new approach by holding out her Sakura Mochi flavored tapioca milk tea as bait, hoping Shikanoko will reveal herself. However, the deer ignores her and instead starts nibbling on Manjuro, a houseplant Koshi had been taking care of. This finally catches the deer's attention. Seeing its interest, Koshi goes a step further and performs the song and dance routine that goes along with the notebook. Just as she finishes, she hears a familiar voice behind her. Turning around, she sees the real Shikanoko standing there. That's when she finally realizes that she's been dealing with a regular deer this whole time. Shikanoko approaches the deer and starts talking to it. She then tells Koshi that the deer escaped from Hino Zoo and assumes the club's deer crackers must have lured it there. As they talk, Shikanoko picks up Koshi's embarrassing notebook and starts reading it. Amused, she asks Koshi to perform the rest of her song. Koshi hurriedly refuses, so the deer eventually leaves on its own. Sometime later, Koshi reaches her third year of high school. One day, Koshi and Shikanoko return to the club room and find an unfamiliar girl waiting inside. She introduces herself as Bashame, and to Koshi's disappointment, Bashame declares that she wants to become Shikanoko's apprentice. A flashback shows why Bashame admires Shikanoko so much. Before the school entrance ceremony, Bashame was lying on the ground, exhausted and starving. Just when she thought she couldn't go on, Shikanoko appeared and gave her a deer cracker. Grateful, Bashame asked for Shikanoko's name, but Shikanoko refused to answer. Later, while eating the deer cracker at the ceremony, Bashame decided she wanted to be just like Shikanoko. Back in the present, Shikanoko asks Bashame if she is really willing to become a deer. Bashame instantly says yes, so Shikanoko starts explaining what she needs to do to achieve that goal. Meanwhile, Anko is reflecting on her life, and she happily announces that she has graduated from middle school and is thrilled to be attending the same high school as Koshi. She also reveals that she joined the deer club just to be closer to her sister. When Anko arrives at the club room, she is shocked to see Bashame flirtatiously asking Koshi to take care of her as well. Shocked, Anko furiously asks Koshi what she's doing with another girl as Shikanoko. Standing on the rooftop is informed that 2 new members have entered the deer club. Anko is approaching some taboo territory. Later, Koshi takes a walk and thinks about how much the club has grown. When she returns, she notices that everyone is just lying around and not doing anything productive, so she frustratingly calls for a club meeting. At the meeting, Koshi warns Bashame, Anko, and Shikanoko that if they continue acting lazy, people will see the deer club as a useless group. To fix this, she asks everyone to share their personal goals for the club. She starts with Shikanoko, but Shikanoko doesn't have anything meaningful to say, so Koshi turns to Bashame instead. Bashame says she wants to start a rice field. Koshi immediately rejects the idea, saying it has nothing to do with the club's purpose. Next, she asks Anko about her goal. Anko's response makes Koshi uncomfortable since she simply says she wants to stay as close to Koshi as possible. Finally, Koshi reveals that she wants to make the deer club cuter. Shikanoko, however, argues that Koshi's goal is the least important and insists that they should focus on her and Bashame's goals since they actually relate to deer. She also reminds Koshi that the main purpose of the club is to take care of deer, especially Shikanoko herself. Additionally, she warns Koshi that if things don't improve, she will leave the club. Later, Shikanoko pulls out a brush and convinces Koshi to brush her fur. As Koshi starts brushing, both Bashame and Anko watch from the side. Seeing this, Bashame insists on being brushed next, thinking it might help her achieve her dream of becoming a deer. Seeing Koshi reluctantly brushing Bashame and Shikanoko, Anko declares that they don't understand anything about her caretaker sister, reminding them that she's been with her for 15 years longer than them both. In other words, she's the most suitable deer for the deer club. Koshi hurriedly asks when she became a deer, but Anko menacingly asks Koshi what she thinks and if she'd rather brush her than Bashame and Shikanoko. They decide to have a contest to see who the real deer is as 3 girls watch them arguing from outside and see that this is the notorious deer club. The new school term begins and Koshi tells the 3 girls from before that she looks forward to working with them as the new student council and enthusiastically says they will work hard to make Hanamanami High School a truly exciting place, remarking that she's been busy with Shikanoko, but this is what she's aiming for. However, the narrator reveals that Koshi doesn't know that one of the council members secretly wants to ruin the deer club. Meanwhile, at the deer club, Shikanoko is sunbathing. Koshi starts the meeting and suggests making booklets for new students, but before she can begin, the vice president, Nico, tells her that she has already printed the booklets, surprising her. Koshi asks if she did all this and cheerily thanks her, but Nico menacingly remarks that she should be more grateful and should bow down to her. After all, her ambition is to overthrow Koshi. It's revealed that she's always been jealous of Koshi and the fact that even the deer club seems to be quite popular. She She inwardly declares that she will expose her as a fraud, force the Deer Club to disband, and knock her off her perch as both student council president and the popular girl. But to do that, she needs to find her weakness. Koshi thanks Nico for working so fast, but Nico asks if she isn't working too slowly since their future looks bleak with someone like her as their president. She tells Koshi to get back to work and stop dawdling, but Koshi is surprised by how cute Nico looks. As Koshi is admiring Nico, the secretary Kinu nervously says she has already sorted the booklets. Koshi thanks Kinu, saying she's been a great help, but notices that the pages might be slightly out of order. Shocked, Kinu starts panicking and hurriedly apologizes. Koshi quickly assures her that it's fine and proposes that they can fix this together, but Kinu tearfully declares that if she can't even do office work, she might not be cut out for the student council. Koshi says that's not true since everyone makes mistakes, but Kinu sadly questions what will happen if these prints get to the first years in the wrong order and believes the new term will start in confusion. Koshi says it won't go that far, but Kinu mutters that because of her, the first year students will be in chaos, the student council will lose its credibility, and Koshi will be forced to resign as president and leave the school. Meanwhile, the council's accountant, Chiharu, is busy stapling booklets. Koshi tries to have a friendly conversation with her, but Chiharu isn't very talkative, which makes things awkward. Chiharu then asks Koshi if she runs the Deer Club, making Koshi nervous. She worries that Chiharu has a bad opinion of the club. Trying to change the subject, Koshi asks if Chiharu wants to join, but she doesn't seem interested. Nico watches and enjoys seeing Kinu and Chiharu make things difficult for Koshi. She also wants to find Koshi's weaknesses. Later, Koshi heads back to the Deer Club, while Nico, Kinu, and Chiharu go to Neko's locker. Nico is annoyed that she didn't get a chance to check out the Deer Club today. At the Deer Club, Koshi is surprised to see Chiharu there, and she worries that Chiharu might find out about her delinquent past. She pulls Shikanoko aside and tells her to stay calm, but Beshame and Anko start acting as they normally do, making Koshi even more nervous. She ends up throwing both of them out of the club room and quickly tries to explain what the Deer Club does, but Shikanoko interrupts by showing Chiharu a video of Koshi messing around with a deer. Koshi pulls Shikanoko aside to ask why she's showing the video before Beshame and Anko come back in, sharing more embarrassing stories about her, so Koshi kicks them out again. Koshi tries to brush it off, saying the video was just for fun, but Shikanoko says that would upset Sonoda, the deer from the video. Koshi is surprised to learn the deer has a name and changes the topic by offering Chiharu some tea. Sonoda leaves, but Shikanoko suddenly dumps a bucket of deer crackers on Chiharu's head. Takashi's shocked. Chiharu looks at the crackers happily. Then Shikanoko hands her some grass, and Chiharu likes that too. Koshi can't believe how excited Chiharu is and starts feeling jealous. She tries to get Chiharu's attention, but Chiharu doesn't care. Eventually, she leaves the Deer Club and heads home. In her room, Chiharu is happy that Shikanoko noticed her. The narrator reveals that Chiharu is actually a secret Shikanoko fan, but at the same time, she feels jealous of Koshi because she wishes she could talk to Shikanoko as easily as Koshi does. Meanwhile, Koshi is scrolling through her phone thinking of ways to get younger students to admire her. Kumini accidentally bumps into her and Koshi offers to help her with something in the gym storage room. Inside, Koshi helps Kuni, but only because she wants Kuni to look up to her. She jokes about how people always get locked in storage rooms, and then right on cue, a boy locks them in. Kumi panics and starts writing her will, but Koshi stops her and Kuni starts listing everything that could go wrong. Koshi looks out a small window and sees Shikanoko, but instead of helping, Shikanoko gets distracted by a lone deer cracker and imagines a musical number about it. After her daydream, Shikanoko walks away, completely missing Koshi and Kuni trapped inside. Meanwhile, Koshi finds Kuni hiding inside a vaulting box. Kuni is thinking about all the mistakes she's made, so Koshi offers to listen and Kuni talks about something she regrets from the past. Just then, Shikanoko returns and opens the door. Koshi thanks her, but Shikanoko says she came to check on the mushrooms she's growing inside the vaulting box. She opens it and finds Kuni inside, immediately accusing her of being a thief, so Koshi quickly tells Shikanoko to calm down. Later, Koshi returns to the Deer Club. Shikanoko makes a mushroom meal and shares it with Koshi, Kuni, and the others. Meanwhile, Nico sits alone in the student council room and wonders why No is coming. Koshi arrives at school and goes to check her locker. When she opens it, she's surprised to find a letter inside. Curious, she wonders what it could be about before Shikanoko unexpectedly appears behind her. Koshi hurriedly asks why she's here so early since she's always here at the last minute. Shikanoko smilingly says she rolled over in her sleep and ended up here. Koshi asks what she means, so Shikanoko reveals that she rolled all the way to school. She cheerily asks Koshi if she's received a love letter, hearing which Koshi starts blushing. Shikanoko asks if this is her first, so Koshi annoyingly mutters that when someone is as pretty as her, not many people dare to approach her, but she knew she'd get one eventually. Shikanoko, however, criticizes Koshi for how she reacted. She then declares that she has never gotten a love letter either, but can tell that there's one in her locker since she can tell through her antlers. She rushes to check it, but shockingly finds that there isn't a love letter inside. Disappointed, she reassures herself that at least her anime and manga publisher must have received fan letters for her. Changing the subject, Shikanoko asks Koshi if she plans to date the person who sent the letter. Koshi hesitates, saying she's unsure. Shikanoko mocks her for not making a quick decision, but then quickly changes her tone tone, telling Koshi to take her time to think about it. Koshi agrees and finally opens the letter, only to realize it isn't a love letter at all. Instead, it's a challenge from someone who wants to fight her. Koshi goes to the meeting spot mentioned in the letter, and when she arrives, the sender appears with 2 others and declares she wants to be the strongest girl in town. But to do that, she has to defeat Koshi. Koshi understands and gets ready for a fight. The sender and her friends attack, and Shikanoko jumps in to help, proudly saying she's the strongest among deer. The fight begins, and Koshi struggles against the group's weapons. Seeing this, Shikanoko throws one of her antlers to Koshi, expecting it to help, but Koshi finds it useless and throws it onto the school's rooftop. To everyone's shock, the antler explodes, sending Koshi, Shikanoko, the sender, and her 2 friends flying. Later, Koshi and Shikanoko return to the Deer Club, where they meet Bashame and Anko. Koshi finds out that the explosion on the school's rooftop made onto the news. Later, she watches Shikanoko at a park, trying to figure out if she has any weaknesses. At the same time, she wonders if Shikanoko is homeless, and as Koshi watches, she sees Shikanoko eating her own horns. When Koshi asks why, Shikanoko casually says she was just hungry, seeing which Koshi starts to feel sorry for her and considers buying her food. Before she can do anything, Shikanoko removes her antlers, cracks them open, and pulls out 2 bananas, which she eats like it's a totally normal thing. Seeing this, Koshi immediately stops feeling bad for her. Shikanoko heads to Hino Zoo, and Koshi secretly follows. She watches in shock as Shikanoko enters Sonoda's exhibit and sits beside him like it's perfectly normal. While Koshi tries to process this, 2 visitors arrive at the exhibit, and she surprisingly sees that they don't seem to find Shikanoko strange. Instead, Shikanoko hands them deer crackers to feed the animals. One visitor hesitates, but before she can react, Shikanoko suddenly bites her hand. Shocked, the woman throws Shikanoko into the crowd, causing her and the other deer to run off and join the Lord of the Deer parade. An old woman watches the parade and gives her opinion on it, while Shikanoko starts glowing mysteriously. She performs a strange ritual on top of the deer and notices Koshi nearby. Caught off guard, Koshi explains that she's just wandering around because she has free time. Shikanoko asks if she wants to get bubble tea, so she agrees, and the 2 drink their bubble tea together at the park. After finishing, they go their separate ways, and it's revealed that Koshi completely forgot about her plan to find Shikanoko's weaknesses. Meanwhile, Miko, the student council's vice president, knows Koshi is busy with Yukai. Seeing this as the perfect chance, she decides to find out Koshi's weakness. She figures the best way to do that is by sneaking into the Deer Club's clubroom. To avoid getting caught, she tries to enter through a window, but before she can, Shikanoko suddenly appears and startles her. Shikanoko assumes Neko wants to join the club and excitedly runs off to throw a small welcome party for her. When Neko insists she has no interest in joining, Shikanoko looks sad, seeing which Neko hurriedly decides to play along and asks Shikanoko to give her a tour of the clubroom. As they begin, Anko and Bashame arrive. Shikanoko excitedly invites them to do some exercises before Bashame introduces herself. Anko says that her goal is to become Koshi's deer, confusing Neko, who asks what she means, but Anko just stares at her intensely, so Neko ignores her. As part of the exercise session, Shikanoko offers Neko a deer cracker and tells her to bite it. Neko hesitates, so Shikanoko asks Bashame to give her a hesitation. Without warning, Bashame unexpectedly bites Shikanoko's hand, shocking Miko. Shikanoko then asks Anko to participate, but she refuses. Instead, Anko remembers something and quickly leaves, saying she wants to mess with Koshi's stuff at home. Now alone with Miko, Shikanoko says she wants to help her grow antlers. Bashame disagrees, saying Miko isn't ready, but Shikanoko insists that Neko has deer talent and can grow antlers if she tries hard enough. She tells Miko to close her eyes and imagine antlers growing from her head. As Miko concentrates, Shikanoko's own antlers unexpectedly start growing longer instead. Despite this, Shikanoko rewards Neko's effort by giving her one of her antlers. Overjoyed, Neko happily takes it and leaves the clubroom feeling accomplished. However, as she walks away, she suddenly realizes she never actually figured out Koshi's weakness and collapses in disappointment. The narrator humbly thanks all the loyal viewers of My Dear Friend Shikanoko and explains that as they fearfully await the day they receive objections from a deer conservation group, their show has officially reached the halfway mark, so this time, on top of their usual episode, they are proud to present to her a collection of 18 mini-episodes. Shikanoko excitedly tells Koshi to watch carefully because she's going to show her psychic skills, but it doesn't bend the spoon that the size of Koshi's antlers grows instead. Later in class, Koshi wearily says she could do with some coffee, so Shikanoko pours some coffee inside her head and gets ready to spit out the prepared coffee, but Koshi hurriedly says she's alright. In the club room, Koshi is calculating their expenses when she worryingly declares that they don't have enough money and questions why the Deer Club has to foot the bill for the competition. Shikanoko smilingly asks Koshi if she wants to sell her antlers, so Koshi flatly takes a photo of them and is instantly able to sell one, much to her shock. Later, Shikanoko worryingly sees that cats are all the rage lately and instantly closes the laptop, questioning if it wasn't finally the time for deer to shine. Shikanoko tells Koshi that she thinks the Deer Club should start selling body pillow covers. Koshi questions where that came from, so Shikanoko declares that she even made a sample. Koshi reminds her that it still has antlers and they get in the way. Shikanoko proposes that they can make make some deer club shirts in that case, so Koshi agrees that they could try that, after which Shikanoko instantly whips out its shirt and tries to put it on, only to realize that it's getting stuck on her antlers. Koshi leaves a supermarket with her boba tea and hurriedly tries to drink it through the straw, but she realizes this isn't a straw, it's an antler. In the club room, Koshi smilingly tells Anko that she looks great in her middle school uniform, even though she rocks the sailor's uniform too, but Anko suddenly reveals that it's the hand-me-down she got from Koshi. Anko and Shikanoko host a show called Natsu Natsu Shopping, and Shikanoko reveals their item for today, an antler-shaped name seal case. They reveal that they slashed down the price from 29,800 yen to 2980 yen for today, along with free shipping. Later in the student council room, Kumi happily sees that Chiharu has an antler-shaped name seal case, and she reveals the numerous other things she got before, offering a plushie to Kuni since she's always taking care of her. Later, Miko wonders if the antler-shaped name seal cases are actually quite popular. She keeps thinking about it later on and realizes it's actually a good deal. Koshi is studying in her home when Anko brings her a drink. 5 minutes later, Anko returns with a snack. Another 5 minutes later, she brings some tea, and another 5 minutes later, she comes back with something else, but Koshi annoyingly asks if she can leave her alone for a bit. In the club room, Shikanoko suggests that they form a band. Koshi asks if she got inspired by some late-night anime, but Shikanoko ignores her and says she's already bought instruments. Puzzled by the lineup of instruments, Koshi hurriedly says she can't even imagine what kind of melody they'd produce together. Bashing decides to whistle. Anko says she'll play a vuvuzela, and Shikanoko declares that she'll be the vocalist, shocking Koshi, who's left to play 3 instruments. It's finally summertime in Hino City, but Koshi mutters that summer comes all the time and questions why Anko and the narrator seem to think Hino is some ominous place outside the human realm and understanding, but Anko starts being creepy since summer means Koshi is now wearing a sleeveless uniform. In the club room, Koshi asks Shikanoko if she ate something off the ground and caught some weird disease. Offended, Shikanoko declares that the only thing she eats off the ground are deer crackers. Anko points out that it's rare to find deer crackers randomly lying on the ground outside of Nara. Bashing reveals that Shikanoko has indeed caught a disease, rice blast, a disease caused by a fungus that can grow in rice paddies. White splotches appear on the leaves of infected plants, and if the symptoms worsen, the plant will wither completely. Not only does it reduce the yield of the rice harvest, it can even kill off entire paddies, making it the disease that rice farmers are most afraid of. Concerned, Shikanoko reveals that deer don't actually die. They just disappear, and says she'll leave the deer club in Koshi's hands. Koshi hurriedly asks what she means by that when the whole club was her idea, but Shikanoko tearfully starts leaving, which makes Koshi tear up. They suddenly notice spots on the deer of Sonoba's body, and Anko suggests that Shikanoko might just be molting hearing, which she realizes she was just overreacting. Shikanoko shows off the fur she shed yesterday, which Bashame hurriedly puts on as Koshi mutters that she's pretty sure this summer's going to be insane. In the student council room, Kuni sees that Chiharu has a new antler, so she says she bought it for 2,000 yen. The summer ends and Nico asks Chiharu and Kuni what their plan is to eradicate the deer club. Surprise, Kuni says they aren't planning to eradicate it, shocking Nico, who insists that they said they'd help her. Shikanoko suddenly appears in front of them and mutters that she's made the discovery of the century and shows them a Tsuchinoko. Nico insists that that's not it and asks what this ball is before the ball's antlers suddenly start moving. Shikanoko reveals that she found it buried under the school ground before she and Nico start arguing about whether or not it's a Tsuchinoko. Shikanoko tries to feed it grass, boba, and deer crackers, but doesn't eat any of them, seeing which she shockingly realizes it might not be a Tsuchinoko. After a while, they see that it likes eating chalks for some reason, and Nico cautiously touches it. She instantly falls in love with it and declares that she will take care of it before Shikanoko enters and asks what Shikanoko is doing here. Shikanoko arrives at the deer club, but before she goes inside, a random deer shows up. She notices a letter attached to its antlers and reads it, realizing that the Deer Collection 2024 competition is coming up soon. Excited, Shikanoko hurries inside and tells Koshi, Anko, and Bashame about the event, saying she's going to participate this year. Koshi asks what the hell that is, but Anko and Bashame seem to know it and explain it's a prestigious show held every 4 years that attracts top deer from around the world, a competition that decides the most awesome deer in the world, and that even includes celebrity guests. Koshi worryingly asks how they even know about this, so Bashame says it's common knowledge in the deer world. Koshi wearily tells Shikanoko to do what she wants since she will at least cheer her on, but Shikanoko tells Koshi she's going to join as well. Koshi incredulously asks where she comes in when it's a deer show, so she points out that the rules state that participants must enter as a pair of one owner and one deer. Koshi questions when she became Shikanoko's owner, so she reminds her that she has to take care of her and asks how she could abandon her pet. However, Anko reveals that she's already told Yukai Koshi will be entering, and Bashame adds that she's completed an application for her as well. Koshi hurriedly says no one asked them to do that and wearily reminds them that she's the president here. Shikanoko sadly sees that it seems Koshi just isn't into it and declares that she was so sure they could win with her, before saying winning will help her career as an honor student too. Upon hearing this, Koshi suddenly freezes. Shikanoko mutters that they'll be able to give the clubhouse a dramatic transformation as well, but decides to just ask Anko or Bashame if she really doesn't want to do it. When Anko and Bashame decline, Shikanoko asks them to change their mind, but Koshi determinedly declares that they're going all the way to the top. They start preparing, and Koshi is shocked by how strong Shikanoko's performance is. Shikanoko points out that they'll be judged by the deer's coat and coloration at deer call, but the most important factor that will be prioritized is the bond between deer and owner, the atmosphere between the two, how they look at each other, and the tone of their voices. So if Koshi can't properly express that, there is no victory. Stunned, Koshi realizes Shikanoko really is no ordinary deer. That's sure as hell true. Shikanoko declares that they're going to figure this out in a week and tells Koshi to follow her because she'll make her into a proper owner. While Koshi continues practicing, she passionately remarks that it's like the embarrassment she felt at first never existed at all, and right now, she just wants all of humanity to see the best performance they have to offer. Yukai walks in and is surprised to see Koshi, who immediately starts blushing. Yukai mutters that she's sure even an honor student like Koshi wants to let loose every once in a while, which is great since everyone deserves a break. She leaves as Shikanoko continues egging Koshi on, but the narrator reveals that a deer named Sonoyama and a deer cracker shop owner Tanabe won the deer call competition. The next day, Koshi goes over her MyTube script and checks her surroundings to make sure everything is set up for her live stream. A flashback shows that a few days earlier, Yukai had suggested she start a MyTube channel to share what the Deer Club is like to everyone, believing it will be a great experience and she'll be able to promote the Deer Club presently. Koshi remarks that if they can get more club funds, they can improve the clubhouse, and any positive attention for the Deer Club will be a plus for her honor student life. She's worried if people will even show up for a Deer Club, but is surprised by how many people are arriving in droves. Suddenly, Shikanoko interrupts the stream, making Koshi panic. Despite the distraction, Koshi introduces herself to the audience and tries to introduce Shikanoko. However, Shikanoko starts scratching her antlers against the wall, creating a weird noise that echoes through the club. Koshi pauses the stream to help Shikanoko, then resumes. She asks Shikanoko to sit next to her, only to realize that Shikanoko's antlers have grown a lot. It becomes harder for her to focus, and things get even worse when Shikanoko's antlers start multiplying. The antlers keep growing, so Koshi hurriedly quickly checks the comments, and someone mentions that wild deer in Nara Park usually have their antlers trimmed. Koshi decides to cut Shikanoko's antlers, but before she can, they fall off by themselves. When she looks at the comments again and she sees Anko and Beshame teasing her, she frustratingly swears never to stream again, and the narrator reveals that while Tanabe and Sonoyama's MyTube channel received great reviews, Koshi's live stream went viral and she managed to raise the money she needed for the Deer Club. The next day in Cafe Sparrow, the owner, Tsubameya, notices Koshi and Shikanoko entering. Shikanoko's antlers get stuck in the doorway, causing Tsubameya to drop the dish he was cleaning. Surprised to see a deer in his cafe, Tsubameya remembers Shiharu's deer-themed merchandise. Wanting to give the best service possible, he approaches their table. Shikanoko asks for an antler rest, but Koshi tells her that kafes don't have those. Tsubameya feels bad that he can't meet Shikanoko's request and hands them a menu, and Shikanoko asks for deer crackers. Tsubameya apologizes, saying he doesn't sell them. Instead, Shikanoko and Koshi order something else. Tsubameya carefully prepares their food, making sure it looks cute and well presented, hoping they'll appreciate his effort. However, Shikanoko eats her meal right away without even noticing the extra effort. Tsubameya looks disappointed as he tells them the total price of their meals. Seeing his reaction, Shikanoko cheers him up, and as she and Koshi get ready to leave, Tsubameya stops them. He promises to make Shikanoko an amazing deer cracker feast the next time she visits, puzzling Koshi. Koshi, Anko, and Bashane wait for Shikanoko at Shikigami Shrine, and Koshi remarks that she's got some nerve inviting her to the first shrine visit of the year and making her wait. Anko cheerily says they can start off the year by swearing their love for each other, and Koshi mutters that they can go pay their respects. As they go up the stairs, they notice a big crowd gathered at the main shrine and wonder if something's happening before Shikanoko unexpectedly appears, and the narrator mutters that Shikanoko has already become a goddess with their first shrine visit of the year. Koshi questions what the hell she is doing, but Bashame and Anko are happy to finally see the deer god, puzzling her. An old woman named Inukai greets them and introduces herself as the shrine's head priest. She confirms that Shikanoko is the goddess of this Shikigami shrine and the symbol of deer prosperity here in Hino, leaving Koshi confused since she can't understand what the point is of wishing for the prosperity of deer in Hino. She believes there's clearly been a mistake since Shikanoko is just a plain old deer. However, Inukai starts menacingly smiling and tells her to just go and see for herself. Koshi asks Shikanoko what she's doing up there and tells her to come down and quit it with that enlightened look. However, the people start happily praising Shikanoko and declare that they're starting off the new year with great luck. Koshi questions what's up with the shrine since the visitors are all messed up along with the god. Inukai says it seems like Koshi has enjoyed their deer god's unveiling. Koshi asks what in the world gave her the idea as Inukai proposes that she should take one of their fortune slips since their Shikigami shrine fortunes are famous for their accuracy. Koshi agrees to do since she might as well draw a great blessing or something else good. However, she annoyingly sees that the fortunes are all about deer and antlers. She sees other people happily taking out their fortunes as well and wonders if she should take this as a blessing. She runs into Nico, Chiharu, and Kinu, and Nico is shocked by the fact that she's received a bad fortune, even though she insists that she's not here to make a New Year's resolution. Koshi smells something sweet, and Shikanoko invites her to try her antler soup. Koshi annoyingly declares that there's no way she's drinking it and asks Shikanoko what's up with her face. Shikanoko reveals that antler soup is a soup bestowed upon humans by the deer gods every year. The deer god herself becomes the stock and doesn't sleep for 3 days and 3 nights, as this is an extremely blessed drink. Koshi questions what the hell that even means and if the soup is literally created by stewing her. Inukai appears and pulls Shikanoko aside for an annual deer-related ritual, confusing Koshi, who questions why it suddenly got so windy. Thinking everything is over, Kashi, Anko, and Bashame leave the shrine, and she mutters that she's already exhausted even though the year just started. However, just as they're about to head home, Shikanoko shows up. Annoyed, Koshi yells at her for making them wait and putting on that deer god act with the ceremonial fires and rituals. Shikanoko insists she just got there and apologizes if she made her wait since she must have been really cold. To make things up with her, Shikanoko offers them a drink so that they can warm up. Koshi and the others are surprised by how delicious it is and ask what it is, so Shikanoko smilingly reveals that it's antler soup, affirming that it really was her up there. Later, Shikanoko and Koshi are on stage, and Shikanoko, now dressed in her deer god outfit, speaks to the audience. She thanks everyone for watching my dear friend Shikanoko and asks them to keep supporting the show before putting on her normal outfit. Shikanoko, Koshi, and Anko are sitting around the table as the narrator explains that one of the traditions for New Year's is playing a board game. There are countless games that span across all ages and many places, but one particular game is the most popular. Its groundbreaking setup caused a huge sensation when it was first released, the game of deer life. Koshi says she's not going to go easy on them just because this is a board game and will show them exactly what it means to compete with her. Anko creepily asks if they're wagering something too and gets excited before Shikanoko declares that they're getting too excited, but she'll show them what a true deer can do. The currency in the game of deer life is not money, but deer crackers, and the one with the most deer crackers at the end of the game wins. As they start playing, Koshi is stopped by a group of bandits, and Shikanoko cheerily declares that the key to the game of deer life isn't how fast you can reach the goal, but how many deer crackers you can amass. Therefore, even if it takes longer, you have to aim for the species that will give you more deer crackers. However, Shikanoko gets caught in some electrical lines as well and loses 50 crackers. As they continue playing, Shikanoko evolves into a powerful moose form and finds a way to make a random bear happy. This earns her millions of deer crackers, putting her in the lead. As she's celebrating, Koshi reveals that she earned billions of deer crackers, taking first place. Then Koshi meets Kinu and Chiharu, who shockingly inform her that a scandal has revealed that Koshi isn't a famous deer, she's actually a capybara. Because of this, Koshi loses all her deer crackers, making Shikanoko the winner. Later, the girls notice Bashame isn't feeling well, so Koshi checks on her. Anko explains that Bashame just ate too much mochi. Without hesitation, Shikanoko touches Bashame with her moose antlers, instantly healing her, seeing which Koshi tells Shikanoko that her new antlers are way too powerful. Koshi, Bashame, Shikanoko, and Anko are hanging out in the Deer Club's clubroom, and she mutters that it's already their second spring since becoming third years. Anko reminds Koshi about the upcoming sports festival and asks if she should really be relaxing here, so Koshi happily announces that she's not like those other student council presidents and is actually super efficient since she's already laid out a solid plan in advance and finished getting ready for everything yesterday. She cheerily says she's sure all those other student council presidents are panicking and flailing around right about now, like grad school kids who put off their summer homework until the very end of summer vacation. Miko suddenly rushes in and informs Koshi that they got an issue on their hands. Koshi asks what the problem is, so Nico reveals that some of the relay buttons broke and they don't have enough now. However, Koshi isn't too worried since she figured something like this would happen and bought extras for them to use, declaring that there are no holes in her plan. However, before she can relax, Kinu shows up and alarmingly informs her that the number bibs got ripped, so they don't have enough now. Koshi calms her down since they have more of those too, but another boy arrives and informs her that the giant ball for the giant ball roll has disappeared, before another girl adds that the computer where the sports festival schedule was saved just broke for no reason. Another guy arrives saying Oshio from the executive committee disappeared. A girl says a kitten climbed up a tree and can't get back down. A guy says a fawn climbed up another tree and can't come back down, and everyone starts hurriedly urging Koshi to help them like a bunch of useless NPCs. Overwhelmed, Koshi hurriedly tries to deal with them before Chiharu appears as well and reveals that the admission gate fell over and was destroyed. Koshi starts alarmingly running around the room, seeing which Shikanoko mutters that Koshi is like a grade school kid who put off her summer homework until the very end of summer vacation. Koshi announces that she needs them all to help her, but Bashame says she doesn't have time since she needs to prepare for tomorrow's rice planting. Koshi annoyingly asks why she's planting rice during school festival and tells her to save it for when she has nothing better to do. Anko mutters that she'll be happy to help her out. Koshi is about to thank her, but Anko creepily says she'll be expecting a little something in return, so Koshi declines her help. The next day, the sports festival finally begins, and Koshi is relieved that she somehow made everything work in time even though she's absolutely beat. Not a single thing went according to plan, but she declares that she can't let this beat her since the main event's just begun. She cheerily declares that with the students, teachers, and associated family members as her witnesses, she will make this a magnificent sports festival that runs perfectly on schedule. That is her duty as an exemplary student council president. She says she has her doubts about everyone besides Anko, but they're better than nothing. Anko announces that the next event will be the class 100-meter dash, and Koshi finds out that Shikanoko is competing as part of the deer team and is not happy about it. Koshi questions Anko about it, but before she can get a clear answer, the crowd gets distracted by people taking pictures of Shikanoko. Before long, the announcer announces the bread-eating race. Hino runs to Koshi with another problem. They've run out of bread. Koshi panics, but Shikanoko comes up with a solution and suggests that they replace the bread with deer crackers, after which they begin the race. Supameyad is determined to win, hoping to impress Chiharu. However, as he reaches each food station, he realizes that all the food items are deer-related. Still, he pushes forward and does his best. Despite his efforts, Inukai wins the race, and to Supameyad's disappointment, Chiharu doesn't even notice him. Next is a unique event where Koshi is given a task to carry an antler-themed bomb. She takes it seriously, only to realize that Shikanoko was the one who added the bombs to the event. The bombs explode, marking the end of the competition, followed by the cheerleading performance. As Koshi thinks back on everything that's happened so far, Anko makes an announcement. The Deer Club's performance is up next. Shikanoko arrives with her deer herd and puts on an elaborate show. While the audience is brought to tears, Koshi is completely frustrated by the ridiculous performance and worries that they won't finish on time. After a chaotic game of tug of antler, the announcer calls for the ball toss competition. Miko sees this as her chance to figure out Koshi's weakness, but she gets distracted when she sees Sochi participating. Worried about Sochi's safety, she rushes over, causing another delay, and Koshi, already irritated, grows even more annoyed. Finally, Anko announces the last event, the relay race. Koshi is relieved, knowing this means the festival is almost over. However, Kinu points out another problem. A large number of deer have gathered on the track, seeing which Koshi, at her breaking point, asks where Bashame is. Bashame finally arrives and explains that she was busy planting rice. Koshi orders her to help clear the deer, but Bashame and the others don't do much to help. With no other options, Koshi grabs Shikanoko and heads to the school's rooftop. There, Koshi opens Shikanoko's head and throws handfuls of deer crackers onto the field. The deer immediately rush for the food, solving the problem. However, Koshi is furious and yells at Shikanoko in front of everyone. Shocked, she remarks that she lost her cool, got mad, and totally broke her facade in front of everyone, so her life as a high school honor student is truly over now. However, to her surprise, the crowd starts cheering for her, praising her since she seems really relatable now. Yukai starts clapping as well, saying she's not afraid to put people in live when necessary, and acknowledges that she's truly a wonderful student council president. Part of Koshi is happy to be accepted for who she is, but at the same time, she rarely wondered why she had worked so hard up until this point, and the narrator reveals that the sports festival ran 3 hours late. Koshi arrives at the Deer Club's room just as the narrator mentions that spring has begun. When she walks in, she finds Shikanoko crying. Shocked, Koshi asks what's wrong, questioning if she's hurt or if she's feeling hungry, reminding her that they still have deer crackers. Shikanoko says she's not even sad, but for some reason, she can't stop crying and asks if it's because it's spring, as Koshi quickly realizes she probably has allergies. Surprised, Shikanoko denies this and asks what she's talking about, reminding her that she's a deer and allergies only affect humans, so there's no way they'd affect a deer like her. However, she annoyingly starts getting itchy and questions why she just can't stop crying. Koshi repeats that she has allergies, but Shikanoko declares that there's no way she's affected by allergies since they could never bring a wild deer down. Koshi asks what she thinks is causing this instead, so Shikanoko suggests that she might have a cold. Koshi angrily tells her to stop being so cold since those aren't cold symptoms. Meanwhile, Miko, Kinu, and Chiharu watch outside and wonder what all that's about. Miko asks how in the world she's supposed to know, but cheerily says she's lucky since she's happened upon this bizarre situation. She decides to use this opening to disband the Deer Club, but starts suddenly getting annoyed by the pollen in the air as well. As she rolls around on the ground because of how itchy her nose is, Shikanoko hurriedly asks Koshi if she does not have any allergies. Koshi declares that she has never once suffered from allergies in her 17 years on Earth, and she never will. Shikanoko annoyingly declares that that's not fair and calls Koshi a former delinquent who likes girly things. Koshi slowly asks what that's got to do with anything, so Shikanoko announces that she can't go on with some human who doesn't understand her pain and says they're disbanding the Deer Club as of today. Koshi questions if they're doing that over something this trivial. Hearing this, Miko cheerily gets up and is about to celebrate, but she starts sneezing again and collapses on the ground, admitting now isn't the time for that. Chiharu suggests that Miko should go back to the student council room so that she can blow her nose. Koshi takes Shikanoko and tells her to wash the pollen off while she goes to get a towel for her. When she comes back, Koshi sees that Shikanoko is washing her antlers since they itch as well. They head back inside and Koshi suggests wearing special goggles to keep the pollen out of her eyes. Shikanoko Shikanoko leaves for a moment and returns wearing swimming goggles she borrowed from the swim team. Unfortunately, the goggles don't stop her antlers from itching and she starts sneezing non-stop. Koshi hands her a box of tissues and tells her to blow her antlers with these next time she feels a sneeze coming up. Shikanoko mutters that she wants more fancy tissues, but Koshi tells her to stop being picky. Shikanoko, feeling bad for herself, starts crying again, muttering that her nose is stuffed up and her voice is all nasally. She questions why these horrible things keep happening to her, seeing which Koshi asks why she's trying to act like a tragic heroine with snot coming out of her nose. Her loud sobbing attracts Tsunobita and other deer, who rush over to cheer her up. Grateful for their support, Shikanoko smilingly says she won't let this get her down and decides to get rid of all the cedar trees in the area so she won't have allergies anymore. Surprised, Koshi tells her to not say something so ominous and reminds her that burning down the cedar trees in the neighborhood isn't going to fix her allergies. However, Shikanoko reminds her that her antlers act as explosives as well and she's been shedding a lot of antlers, so she's going to blow up every last cedar grove in Japan. Koshi tells her to not store explosives in the clubhouse as Shikanoko madly declares that she will burn all these trees down to the ground. Nico suddenly appears with Kuni and Chiharu and offers to help Shikanoko with her plan, but before they can go through with it, Koshi drags Shikanoko to a vet who treats both dogs and cats, hoping they can help. She even makes Nico get checked too. Just then, a piece of pollen lands on Koshi's nose, and she suddenly starts having the same symptoms. The hospital staff suggests she see the same doctor as Shikanoko. A while later, Koshi realizes Shikanoko hasn't been to the club for some time. Anko has noticed too, so she and Koshi decide to look for her, bringing Bashain along. As Koshi walks down the school hallway, she hears loud talking coming from the flower arrangement club. Looking inside, she sees Shikanoko sitting with the club members. The club leader asks Shikanoko to show them how she arranges flowers, but instead of actually arranging them, Shikanoko does something so strange that Koshi is completely confused, though the club members seem impressed. The leader curiously asks Shikanoko what her technique is called. Shikanoko proudly says it's called Tsunobishika, and after she helps judge one of the club members' flower arrangements, she suddenly takes out a guitar and starts playing. As she strums, the large plants behind her come to life and try to eat the club leader. Even after that chaotic moment, the leader is impressed and tries to get Shikanoko to join their club permanently, but Shikanoko refuses, saying she loves the Deer Club more than any other club at school. With that, she and Koshi return to their own club room. Later, Bashaim asks Anko to help her with rice planting, but Anko refuses. Just then, Suki walks into the room and Bashaim immediately recruits her instead. To everyone's surprise, Suki does a great job and she and Bashaim end up having a friendly rice planting contest. Once they finish, Anko, Suki, and Bashaim sit down for lunch together. As they eat, Bashaim asks Anko about her interest in food preparation. Not sure what to do next, Bashaim listens as Anko suggests pickling some plums, exciting Bashaim, who decides to hold a rice ball party with pickled plums, after which Anko asks if she can bring extra food to the party. Koshi gazes out the classroom window and remarks that it's really peaceful, hoping these days continue forever before turning to Shikanoko, who's fast asleep at her desk. As she sleeps, bubbles float from her antlers. Koshi tries to wake her up, but Shikanoko's antlers slap her hand away. She admits she can understand falling asleep in the last period. Suddenly, a flock of birds flies into the room and lands on Shikanoko's antlers. Minutes pass, and the number of birds on Shikanoko's antlers only increases, seeing which Koshi tells her to wake up already. A while later, Koshi wonders why no one is saying a damn thing about this, but the narrator explains that this is just a typical my dear friend Nokoten moment. Eventually, Shikanoko wakes up and casually mentions that someone's tag is still on. Everyone starts panicking, and the narrator remarks that no one was able to focus on their work for the rest of the day because all these kids are TikTok-brained millennials. Later, a man dressed like a samurai slowly walks, muttering that he smells something. When school ends, Koshi tells Shikanoko they should get going, but she surprisingly notices that she's disappeared. The samurai slowly enters the classroom and mutters that the scent was coming from here, but it seems that it got away. He declares that he, Kumatori Soichiro, was once known as a legendary Mataji hunter, but it seems he's lost his edge. Koshi questions why a man like that suddenly appeared here and asks what he wants, but he completely ignores her and investigates Shikanoko's desk, saying his quarry couldn't have gone too far. He declares that he won't let her get away and leaves, after which Koshi gets ready to report him, but before she can, Shikanoko comes out of hiding. Surprised, Koshi questions how she got out of the floor, so Shikanoko says it's good that she made some modifications just in case something like this happened. Koshi annoyingly tells her to not go modifying school property and asks if she wants to be reported as well. She asks what that Mataji is even doing here since he was checking Shikanoko's desk. Shikanoko explains that today is the Day of the Deer and that Kumatori is here to capture her. If he catches her, a Jibir festival will be held in front of Hino Station and the citizens of Hino will make a delicious meal out of her, which is why she has to spend today running away from him. Kumatori searches the school for Shikanoko, and just as he gets close to her scent, two girls start making fun of him and ask him to take a picture with them so that they can post it online. One of them sneakily signals to Shikanoko to escape before he can catch her, so Shikanoko hurriedly gets away. Later, Kumatori enters the principal's office and looks up at a deer's head head before slowly walking away when he doesn't notice anything off. However, as soon as he leaves, Shikanoko gets out of the deer and runs away. Kumatori sets up cameras around the school to track Shikanoko's movements as the fierce battle continues even after midnight. However, his plan doesn't work since Shikanoko enters the trap with a deer cracker and makes the entrance to the cage explode with her antler before getting away and eating the cracker in front of the camera, infuriating Kumatori. Eventually, he corners her on the rooftop and says it seems he's finally tracked her down. Koshi arrives and tries to help, but Shikanoko warns her to stay back, saying she should witness how their battle ends because she will never fail to Kumatori, and tells him to bring it on. Kumatori says she's a lively one, but she won't be talking like that for long. He brings out his rifle and gets ready to fire, declaring that her life belongs to him. However, just as the fight is about to start, Kumatori's wife calls, reminding him to pick up radishes on his way home. He sighs and leaves, seeing which Shikanoko celebrates and promises to defeat him the next time the day of the deer comes around. Before he makes it home, two officers stop and arrest him. Sometime later, Koshi and Shikanoko are in the Deer Club's clubroom. Shikanoko wears a tracksuit since her school uniform was torn. Since her tracksuit is also damaged, Koshi decides to take her shopping for a new one. On their way out, Shikanoko suddenly hides after spotting some plastic bottles. Koshi helps her move again, and the two go for a jog, but somehow end up back where they started. Seeing no progress, they return to the clubroom, and back at the club, Koshi sews up Shikanoko's tracksuit. Shikanoko thanks her, but she accidentally rips it again, almost immediately, seeing which Koshi sighs and offers to fix it once more, remarking that Shikanoko is a pain in the butt, but this isn't so bad, hoping these days continue forever. Later, Koshi spends her day at school and sees that Shikanoko isn't there. Later in the club room, Anko says she's late, so Koshi mutters that Shikanoko has been missing all morning and asks Beshaim and Anko if they've seen her, but they both seem to be confused, and Beshaim slowly asks who Shikanoko is. In a wild snowstorm, Kumatori shockingly stumbles upon something menacing and tells Shikanoko that Deer's Den is on the move before he suddenly spits out blood and collapses as the narrator reveals that Kumatori's hunch was correct, and unbeknownst to all, the wrath of the deer was concentrating upon Hino City, and now a huge deer storm is about to wreak havoc. Meanwhile, Shikanoko hurriedly informs Koshi and the others that Kumatori just sent her a DM saying that Deer's Den assassins are coming to Hino City. She tells them that assassins from Deer Den are heading to Hino City. Koshi says she has several questions and asks what happened to that serious-sounding finale they had in the last episode. Shikanoko insists that that doesn't matter right now, so Anko suggests that she knows about the Deer's Den assassins. She asks Koshi if she's familiar with the local mascots created to promote various cities, and explains that there's a secret organization that specializes in training the deer-type ones, Deer's Den. Koshi questions what's with this secret organization out of nowhere, so Shikanoko reveals that that's where she's from, that the training became a real pain, and she had some important reasons for leaving. She reveals that the assassins have been tracking her by watching the anime as it airs, and now they're dispatching assassins to bring her back as a traitor. Koshi asks if a bunch of local mascots are after her, and tries to tell her that they're not going to arrange celebrity appearances for an anime like this, but one mascot named Kyun suddenly appears in front of them as it's revealed that it grew up in the national park in Hokkaido, and they came down from the mountain to learn about various things and ended up becoming a local mascot to promote the attractions of Hokkaido. Shikanoko tells Kyun she's not going back to Deer's Den and challenges it to a duel, and they agree to settle things with a dance battle. If Kyun wins, Shikanoko has to return to Deer Den. If Shikanoko wins, she gets a year's supply of deer crackers. The competition begins, and both show off their best dance moves. When it's over, Yukai asks Tsunoda to pick the winner. After thinking it over, Tsunoda chooses Kyun. Shikanoko is furious and yells at Tsunoda for not picking her. Before she can argue further, masked men from Deer Den show up, lock her in a cage, and get ready to take her away. Koshi hesitates, considering letting Shikanoko go, but Yukai reminds her that if Shikanoko leaves, the Deer Club will be shut down. Even worse, Koshi will have to pay back all the club's funds. Realizing what's at stake, Koshi challenges Kyun to another dance battle. They compete, and this time Tsunoda declares it a tie. Not wanting to be left out, Shikanoko puts on her flower arrangement teacher outfit and casts her own vote for Kyun. Then she hands him a deer cracker as a prize. Before anyone can take a break, another set of assassins arrives, Chikamaru and Hana. Anko explains who they are and reveals that they're just kids in costumes. Yukai decides to change things up and announces a new challenge, a 2 vs 2 mind-reading game with Koshi, Shikanoko, Chikamaru, and Hana. The game starts, and Chikamaru and Hana easily guess each other's thoughts. Koshi becomes suspicious and questions if the game is fair. Then it's Koshi and Shikanoko's turn. Koshi quickly realizes she has no idea what Shikanoko is thinking. When Shikanoko reveals her answer, Anko is unimpressed. In the end, Yukai declares Chikamaru and Hana the winners, and the Deer Den members lock Shikanoko up again. Before they can take her away, Neko and the others step in in to help. The narrator pauses to explain why Nico, despite not always getting along with the Deer Club, has decided to assist them, just as Shiharu and Kinyu prepare to challenge Shikamaru and Hana. Shikamaru suddenly gets a phone alert. He realizes that today is a child's birthday in Ojika Town. Anko explains that celebrating birthdays is part of Shikamaru and Hana's duties. Without hesitation, the two give up the match and rush off to handle their responsibilities. Bashame then arrives with a letter for Shikanoko from Kumatori. She learns that Deer Den's strongest assassin, Sento, is on his way. The group returns to the Deer Club, where Koshi rereads the letter. Sento wants Shikanoko to meet him at a gym later that day. Determined to help, Koshi promises to train Shikanoko for the battle. After an intense training session in the gym, the crowd cheers as Shikanoko enters the arena. Then Sento walks in and the audience gets even louder. The match begins and Shikanoko gives it her all. However, Sento's sumo-style fighting quickly overpowers her and the first round ends in his favor. During the break, Koshi and Shikanoko come up with a new strategy. As the second round starts, Shikanoko pulls out a weapon. Even though it's against the rules, one of the judges allows her to use her antler nunchucks. A fast-paced sequence of rounds follows, each ending almost instantly, and before the final round, Koshi gives Shikanoko one last pep talk. The last round begins and Shikanoko uses her special deer copter technique, throwing antler bombs around the arena to try and stop Sento. Despite her efforts, Sento remains unfazed and defeats her. After the fight, the judges ask Shikanoko about her loss, since Sento doesn't speak. She argues that both she and Sento put on an amazing show and believes they're both winners. One of the judges is so impressed by her speech that he declares both Shikanoko and Sento the champions. As the crowd cheers, Shikanoko asks Koshi if she's going to continue taking care of her, so she embarrassingly says she'll have to before they both start happily celebrating.